All right, here is one book that you probably have never heard of that will make you millions. It is called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. Now, here's the thing. There's a lot of books out there in the landscape of entrepreneurship and money making that you will hear mentioned over and over and over again. You got Traction, you have the E-Myth Revisited, you have the Lean Startup, like all these operating systems that people tout, and for good reason. They are effective. They work. I firmly believe that any system, even a broken system, if it applied with enough intention, can be made to be useful. But for me, when we started building Escape Climbing, this was a manufacturing environment. At the beginning, we were using Traction in the Entrepreneur Operating System, EOS, but there were some gaps between the theory and application we were really struggling with. And it wasn't until I stumbled on this book, The 4 Ds of Execution, that the light bulb went on and I realized how to bridge the gap between theory and practice. And so there's 4 ideas in particular from this book I want to share with you that you can apply to your business that I promise you will make you more money, or at minimum, just make your business run more efficiently and cause way less headaches. So the first concept is something called WIGs. That stands for Wildly Important Goals. Now, if we were to graph out all the tasks that you have on your to-do list based off of how important they are and how urgent they are, then we would be able to create this lattice work understanding of how important and urgent certain tasks are relative to one another. And so tasks that are very important and very urgent on this graph would be in the top right corner. And so those are what we call MIGs. That's most important goals. And because they are both important and urgent, there's a deadline looming with them and fast approaching, they tend to get done. Those are the really big fires in our life that we're like, I need to do that thing. We don't typically need to put too much time and energy into worrying about when we're going to do the MIGs. They have a way of getting done. The bigger problem is tasks that fall to the left of our MIGs. Those are tasks that are very important, but not urgent. So tasks that are important but not urgent, they tend to get delayed, they get procrastinated, and typically in favor of either doing our MIGs, that's a good thing, right? Or in favor of doing quadrant 3 tasks. Quadrant 3 tasks are things that are not important, but they are very urgent. This is important because that which is important should never be at the mercy of that which is merely urgent. And yet we do this all the time in our business. Like the deadline for this thing is looming, but it's not really that important. But because the squeaky wheel gets to grease and the deadline is going whir, 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 and the alarm's going off, we do that thing rather than the WIG. So the first thing that you need to do is within your company, identify what are the WIGs for you and for everybody on your team. And then once you've identified those WIGs, schedule them, actually put them on the calendar. And for us, I'm going to talk about this in a second at the very end, is creating a cadence of accountability so that you can sit down and make sure that everybody is making progress towards their WIGs so that it doesn't graduate to becoming a MIG. Because as soon as the WIG graduates to a MIG, it's going to get done. But now because you are up against a deadline, it might not get done as well as it could have. So that's number one concept is WIGs. The second concept is the idea of lead measures versus lag measures. So lead measures are the things that we do that drive our lag measures. So a lag measure would be, I want to lose 15 pounds, right? You only ever know if you lost 15 pounds when you step on the scale and you measure the weight loss, right? But at that point, you can't do anything to affect the weight loss. It's either happened or it hasn't happened. The lead measure is to say, what are the activities I need to input into the system that would lead to the desired output? So if you want to lose 15 pounds, I need to have a caloric deficit of 200 calories every single day. So I need to not eat this thing. I need to cut that out. I need to work out every day and do, 30 minutes of cardio, whatever. Like, what are the things that you're going to do that would lead to the desired output? Now, this is really important because a lot of times in business, we're only ever measuring the lag measures. We're looking at the financial reports, the bank accounts, the end of month revenue numbers, but by that point, it's too late. And so, and more importantly, nobody on the team can affect that. It's already done. And so if you want your team to be effective, they have to know what they can do in real time right now, today, that would drive the desired result. And so getting really clear on what everybody's lead measures are within the business, and then helping them understand how that connects to the lag measure. And if you can't make that connection, then people just get frustrated because they're doing work and they're like, what's the point of this? But if you can help them make the connection, say the reason we're focused on this part right here is because downstream it'll lead to this. And that is the big goal for whatever reason, right? Now, the third thing is it's one thing to have our WIGs. It's another thing to have our lead measures. But if we don't have a way of scoring it, then nobody knows whether or not they're winning on a day-to-day basis. And so you need to create a compelling scorecard that somebody can look at and know at a glance, am I winning or am I losing relative to the big goals? And the goal here when you're creating your scorecard is to make it as simple as possible. This isn't to have a super crazy robust scorecard that's measuring every little single thing. My goal is just to have 2 or 3 metrics that you can measure, you can look at a glance and say, are we on pace? Red light, yellow light, green light. Keep it simple. That's the most important thing when it comes to scorecards, but make them effective by actually measuring things that matter, like lead inputs, right? Okay, so now we have our WIGs, we have our leads, we have our scorecard. The fourth thing is creating a cadence of accountability. And so this is very important because often what I've seen is people sit down with their teams far too infrequently, like once a month, just to review the numbers, right? And so much happens inside of a month that you have to have a faster cadence of accountability. But then the question is, how do you effectively manage those meetings? How do you actually hold people accountable? How do you coach them up if they're not hitting their numbers? And so this is one of the ideas that the book 4 Ds of Execution really will help you unpack, is like, how to create a cadence of accountability that is actually effective and helps the person grow and improve into their role. So those are 4 ideas from this book that you probably never heard of. I highly recommend you pick it up, regardless of where you are on the journey. Even if you don't have a team, you can still apply the concept of WIGs, lead inputs, scorecards, and cadence of accountability with yourself. And there's a really interesting concept, right? Like, what's your cadence of accountability to yourself? When are you sitting down and reviewing your own performance? When are you being as objective as possible to assess, did you do the work? Is the work you're doing working, right? There's an idea that I would highly encourage you to implement into your day-to-day, week-to-week practice, is saying, am I winning? How am I doing? If I was managing myself, what would be the feedback I'd give to myself? So take this book, go read it, go implement it, and go build an awesome business. I'll see you guys in the next episode.